Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Careers Plus Plus, powered by DN69 in collaboration with AIT Entrepreneurship Center. I'm Jennifer, your host for today. In the previous session, we spoke about higher studies as a strategic pathway. Today, we go one level deeper into research, academia, and fellowship-based careers. These paths are often misunderstood, sometimes romanticized, sometimes dismissed. Our goal today is, as always, clarity, not persuasion. Research and academic careers are not extensions of career life. They are professional paths that demand discipline, independence, patience, and resilience. This session will help you understand what these careers really involve so you know whether it's for you or not. With me today is Mr. Pargab Mohandas, the co-founder of CareersPlus Plus. He will take us through pathfinding workshop on research, academia, and fellowship careers. What are the myths, realities, and strategic fit? Hi, Mr. Pargab.
Hi.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So we have come towards the conclusion of this part of our journey, right? So we knew, we knew about each other as well as ourselves. Then we sort of touched base upon what should we do, or rather what we should not do when it comes to communication. Then we learned about the basics of job finding exercise and the basics behind it. We touched base upon higher studies during our last session. Okay, so today we are coming towards the session that covers what's assuming that we have chosen to go on the higher studies path. So what we do from there. So let's go ahead. So last time we discussed in depth, right, in terms of having clarity on why we should go towards higher studies. So today, with the presumption that we already have gone through that phase, then what kind of different careers that might come across for someone who's very much intrigued into a higher study? And I think the way this has been prepared, to my understanding, that we are focusing more on master's degree or PhD and above. So when we talk about someone focusing deeply on higher studies, so automatically we foresee them to be focusing towards research and academic career. So what are the different career paths that can be involved in that? First, in terms of creating knowledge. Second, deep inquiry and specialization. Third, definitely teaching, mentoring, and publication. And fourth, it can be a long-term contribution to a field. So just to elaborate a bit more, so automatically, like, we grow with knowledge, right? So that's why once someone has taken research and academia being their core source of work, core source of inspiration, so one of the aspect can create knowledge, because the more knowledge is created, then better we can be, right? So one, it can be a sole focus that, okay, on a particular subject, let's learn and create more and more information, more and more knowledge. Second, obviously, if someone is getting into the research part as the main focus, so automatically they can get into a very deeper specialization on a particular domain. Of course, we all know that when it comes to teaching, mentoring, and publication, so we put it all in under one umbrella because normally they go hand in hand. So nowadays, I think we cannot get away without having higher studies, because a very basic requirement to get into a teaching job in a reputed university nowadays requires PhD as a minimum, right? And then sometime the research work can be free of any such a tangible outcome, but it can be just a passion, an obsessive passion towards contributing towards a particular field. Like I mentioned, the very first one and the last one, they're sort of like interrelated, but the first one is more of like creating as much knowledge as possible through intensive research work, whereas the last one is about creating higher and higher value on one particular domain to get high sense of expertise in that segment, right? So so basically, when we talk about getting into research and academic careers, it's not about being continuing as a student forever. Of course, we are a student for our entire life, but in terms of our contribution, right? For our own sake, we should always consider ourselves to be students so that we can learn and grow every day. But when it comes to contributing to the society, we cannot remain a student all the time. So when we talk about research and academic careers, it's not about continuing being a student forever, but it's more of like a professional commitment in sectors which needs deep insight. Now, as we had been trying to, clear the myths to the extent possible, so some of the myths and truths, reality associated with some of the aspects. So a lot of time, like people at the job sector, they might see academia is a way of getting rid of, the job-related stress. So it's a perception that, oh, if you're in academia, we don't have the stress of a job, so it can be much slow. We can have a comfortable, slow life and can be stress-free. But the reality is that even academia has its own requirements. Those requirements may not be all the time tangible with some monetary value, but it still has very high very high essence. For example, whenever an academician is going to publish a paper or something, it has its deadlines, it has its requirements. A lot of time to conduct the research work, we need proper grants and fundings, things like that. So if we really want to excel in something, everyone has its share of pressure. I think in the very second session we discussed this thing, like when we're trying to explain what Careers Plus is not. We mentioned that Careers Plus is not some gimmick to pave a shortcut to success. Any success that attained through shortcuts are basically either good luck or perhaps are something that's not going to be sustainable. The same goes here as well. So if we think that we want to go to academics simply because we want to get off our job life to release some of the stress, that's a wrong thing. The academia is also full of its own stresses. Then a lot of time, there is another perception is that research are always meant for the top students. When I say top students, means the students who get very high grades or who would get some award for their research work or for their thesis and so on and so forth. But is that really true? Right? I mean, can we define a person to be a born researcher based on something he or she might have attained during one year of thesis work in a master's degree? Because when we talk about good research work, it's a lifelong commitment. So that's why basically when we talk about someone, whether he or she is fit for research work or not, their ability to persist in something and persevere in something is far more important than what grade they got. Because a lot of time we may come across certain students, overall grade, the GPA, right? Uh, so it just may not be, it like accumulated GPA may not reflect very high number. But then we can see that that person has some immense interest in one particular subject, and that person is fully focused, determined on that one. So obviously that person definitely, even though the cumulative GPA may not be very good, but that person overall on the research aspect might be far more suitable than someone whose cumulative GPA might be higher than that person, right? And another myth, a lot of time people sees that PhD can guarantee like a lifelong respect and stability, right? Because a lot of time the doctor on the left side of the name, a lot of time feel that sense of comfort. But having said that, it it definitely guarantees some effort, but may not be the outcome, because sometimes we have to see the flip side as well. I personally have come across many of my contemporaries who just finished their bachelor's, right after that did their master's, and right after that did their PhD, and got that doctor on the left side of their name by the time they were maybe 27, 28. But then they came to the market as doctor somebody with no experience in the real world. So at that point in time, it's very difficult for them. And then apparently, then they realize that they're not meant for research or academic jobs. They are not interested to be a professor somewhere. So then what to do? I even had certain examples where doctor someone got into a consulting company as special advisor kind of role, but the main thing maybe he or she was doing was drafting English letters in a Thai company, and sometime whenever foreigners will come, just sit in the meeting even though he or she may not know what exactly that meeting is all about. So sometime, we have to be free of these myths. Now, once we are beyond, we are going beyond the myths. So now next, the what kind of different research oriented paths that we can choose, right? So we're just going sector by sector. So first and foremost, it's we can just say a faculty in some education institution or academic research. Like for most of the academic researcher, they can focus on getting enrolled in educational institutions. Then we do have certain researcher who are very much detailed in the application side, like what we call industry researcher. So industry researchers automatically can get in the R&D sale of some high-end corporates, right? Then automatically a lot of time we do need the general think tank to create policies, right? So for such researchers, obviously, they have that sort of career path as well. That wherever the policy making has been done, so policy making is sometime done within the government, or sometime government also need to get into the consulting company. So that's another way a researcher can get enrolled himself or herself for a job. Then comes the next sector where we like one individual wants to independently develop a kingdom of his or her own, right? So they are so intrigued into their own research, so they just create their absolutely independent applied research work, get the grants themselves or get the investment from some corporate themselves, and create their own success story. So we have seen quite a few like that as well. And the last but not the least, which is again quite relevant, is like once someone attains the PhD and still would like to explore more in the same process, just enhance a bit more, so they can proceed towards being postdoctoral fellow. And I think post this session, I would really would like to get let Professor Dieter, enlighten all of us on this aspect, because definitely he has seen it all from all aspects. I think Professor Dieter is in. I think he got involved in bearing the postdoctoral. I'm not sure about that, Professor. You can comment, but bearing that, I could see you being contributing in all the sectors here, right? From your own research experiences, right from the industry all the way to academia and all the way to entrepreneurship, and everything is. I think your research has a big role to play. Yeah.
Yes, right.
So now, I think this is just an extension of the slide we had, like who is suitable to go for higher studies and not. So this is actually quite a reflection of that. So the person to get into a research academia based job, The person who is suitable are the ones who likes enjoy, who likes to likes to answer, which are usually unanswered. They would like to ask things which are not usually unanswered. So they basically the urge to know more and more. The people who can work independently for long periods, the people who can accept delayed rewards, and of course the people who can handle rejection and critics in as like considering it as a tool to grow. And automatically the people who may not be suitable for such job in research and academia, who really need quick validation, who would prefer precise and immediate outcomes and doesn't like to deal with ambiguities, need everything point blank. So this is actually quite a straightforward reflection of what we discussed during our last session. So here also we repeat the same conclusion, that interest alone is not actually enough here. Temperament matters quite a bit. So the key aspects now to judge that whether we are fit for such job profile or not. So what exactly it will involve, right? So the involvements that we can see in terms of an academic life, like very in-depth reading and writing. So that's why I think we had this conversation last time, that for being suitable to go for higher studies, that one should be very much sort of like aligned with the mindset of reading and writing for efficacy. But like if they just don't like to read and write too much, they may not be very suitable. So obviously the academic life will include a lot of reading and writing, a lot of laboratory work, experimental work, depending on which field of study we are focusing on. Definitely a lot of publications and peer review, because publication is a way of judging our level of success in this world. Then automatically the teaching and mentoring work that also comes as we grow in the process. Then most of this research requires proper grants or funding. So definitely that is another skill that with our desire or with our passion towards that particular subject matter, we should have good skill in terms of writing the proposals for grant and funding support. And at the same time need to be aware of all the administrative responsibilities as well, because any good initiative, if not administered properly, might go the wrong way. So so that's why, like, the work is quite rewarding in this segment, but at the same time it can also be as demanding as any work in the corporate sector. So that is very straight. Only thing is that demands are somewhat different than one may encounter in the corporate sector. So last time we talked about scholarships. So in the same pattern here, we are talking about different fellowships that we come across in this kind of career path. So what actually they would expect whenever fellowships are coming to support our research work. So it will definitely need clarity. We have been talking up to times about clarity and everything. So of course they would need absolutely clear research direction. Then at the same time, we mentioned about this, that societal and academic impact of the subject matter, and of course independence and discipline of it. So that basically are the key requirements of the fellowships when they come to support our work. They won't simply be some time bound opportunities that we have so much of funds to be given for such so and so fellowship for this period. Very unlikely it would be like that, because as long as the provisions don't support the real cause, it doesn't make that much of a sense. At the same time, fellowships, a lot of time they are like, they are quite competitive and selective. We say it's not like that we come across a very good idea, present it, and we just get it. Because the thing is that a lot of time there might be plenty of other researchers who are thinking the same direction. So we just have to be very, very clear about what we are preparing, assuring that What is our USP? What is what is the reason that some donors of fellowships should choose us, not someone else? And very importantly, the fellowships will definitely see what is the outcome. So that's why the outcome, they are all outcome driven. So that's why we should focus on having the clarity so that we can develop a very competitive proposal that shows clear outcomes. Then attaining fellowships can be far more simpler. So that's why fellowships, like we discussed on scholarship, the same thing. The fellowships basically, they would be investing on the potential of the project, not for some exploration work. Because if someone just goes for a fellowship grant saying that we are going to do so and so research just to explore something, but we don't know what's coming out as a tangible outcome, we may not get the grant. And yes, publications, conference, and networking, as we discussed. So the key aspects, a lot of time, what we see that publications keep on happening as multiplying numbers, right? We come across sometime if we read through two papers, say read one paper in depth and the paper number two, suppose we read it for 5 minutes, reading the abstract, we know exactly it's just an inspiration for paper one just by changing or tweaking a few details, that can increase the number, but that doesn't build credibility. So that's why such publications are focused more on building credibility of the subject matter one in which we are doing the research. Definitely the conferences build visibility because more and more we create such presentations in conferences that to it good level of credibility and confidence that makes us more and more visible. And with that visibility, we can create more and more network with the relevant people in our sector, which definitely create more and more opportunity. So that's why like research work is a solitary exercise, right? But definitely careers are not. I mean, when we make a career out of research work, we have to go through all the same things that we do in any other career in terms of making ourselves visible and at the same time create networks of our own so that our work can strive and progress. So now the career trajectory, right? The realistic view, basically, like what we call career path as well. So typical progression, right? The way it happens is that, of course, we agreed that we are going ahead doing higher studies, then we get a PhD. Many a times we maybe to enhance it further, we go through some postdoctoral and fellowship jobs, and then eventually join in a job with as a faculty somewhere or a researcher in some organization, right? So obviously, I mean, we mentioned about the policymakers, but a lot of time, I think these policymaking things, like mechanism, will machineries will have will need people from the research and education institutions, regardless, right? But what are the things that we may come across in the process? One thing is that all these paths are not very linear. So the thing is that when we say about linear, like when we are in a job, suppose a corporate job aspect, so over there the requirements are quite straightforward. But when we talk about such trajectory in a research oriented career path, the paths are not very linear because it depends on how much we have exhausted ourselves and how much we have obtained. Because a lot of time we might give our 100%, but the outcomes are not coming the way it was expected. So in that case, we may not get the results of our efforts. All right. So that's why sometimes the progression may not be very fast, but sometimes if we may manage to achieve like the results in tandem with our efforts, then automatically. So that's why that non-linearity or that ambiguity might remain. But then again, that's why we just kept on saying that someone who has chosen this path should be resilient, should have very high level of like having the ability to stick on to what we are doing, and extreme perseverance. Okay. Then another aspect we come across, perhaps the funding gaps, which are very common aspect, because sometimes if we do research based on funding from some external sources, and suppose the research is not delivering what exactly it intended to be, so sometimes the funding might get slowed down, and contrary to the public belief, we need high level of mobility even here. It is not something that we got a research work and we sit in our quiet corner and create some masterpiece. It doesn't happen that way. As we already have discussed, that we also need equal level, if not more at times, level of other aspects, such as liaising with peers and doing proper networking to grow. So that's why, like stability may take some time, but if we have clarity at the very early stage, then attaining stability is much easier. So some risks and trade-offs that we just must be aware of when we choose this path. First is definitely financial uncertainty, as I mentioned moments back. I think all of them we already have covered. It's just a way of highlighting them out there. Financial uncertainty, long timelines, as things might get delayed. Of course, geographic mobility, and sometime when things don't go the way we perceive them to be, emotional fatigue. So we just have to be, ready for all these challenges when we go towards this career path. So as long as we remain focused, we maintain our clarity, we remain aware, so that automatically can help us to a significant extent. But still a lot of us choose this path, right? Despite all these challenges. So the key aspects we foresee, the key reasons, one is that definitely it gives us intellectual freedom if we take this course, right? So it gives us intellectual freedom because we are creating something absolutely new that nobody else has tried before. So that's first. Automatically, with that intellectual freedom and clarity in mind, we can contribute very deep. So that contribution is quite in depth, right? And it also, if successful, and it paves us the way to mentor the future generations. In fact, even without being a high-end researcher, if we get into the job path of being a professor in an educational institution, so by default we get a chance to mentor future generations. And of course, like when we get into the segment of shaping the policies, like the future, because see, the things that all the researchers are shaping the policies or all the technological growths in the society. So that's why, in a way, we are shaping the future. So if you are doing a good job, we have the room to grow together with the growth of the globe. So that's why, like, for the right fit, the rewards are profound, meaning that, going back to the same thing, if we have the qualities of a good researcher with absolute clarity in our mind, then definitely all these four aspects we can attain without much difficulty. And then the rewards can be rewards, both mental as well as the tangible commercial rewards, can be very, very profound. So reflections for today. So the key reflections, I think we just need to ask ourselves that what do attract us? What does attract us towards this, to the research or academia? What are the concerns? Because we already have, I think, gone through all the attractive points as well as the concerns to have. Then which are the aspects that can excite us? Just to highlight, is it discovering something new? Is it teaching someone? Is it like my research will have positive impact? Or maybe, once my research becomes successful, I get the recognition I get. and what kind of rhythm do we want in this aspect. So basically, as we always say, clarity reduces self-deception. So let's ask this question to ourselves and answer to self. If there is ambiguity, you can always come back and reach out to us, and we are very happy to assist. As many of you have come back with your personal questions or sessions post this like sorry, our twice a week sessions, our official posts. All right. So how Careers Plus helps us in this part? So first, like when there is curiosity but uncertainty, so Careers Plus definitely through our sessions, our consultation, as well as throughout the SKUs that we develop here, can clear that uncertainty. Then when there is any confusion about the probable pathways within the process of within the system of this career path of academia and research, so automatically we can discuss and we can clear it out based on the individual which path is more suitable. Then, like in terms of there is any difficulty on how to articulate a proper research intent, so definitely Careers Plus is always standing by to assist. Then in terms of the concern of competitiveness, so suppose we have something but we are not quite clear if it is really competitive to meet the challenges outside, Careers Plus is standing by to assist and make it suitable enough so that it can compete with the rest of the peers. And last but not the least, if there is any doubt in terms of long-term commitment, definitely Careers Plus is there to have that discussion in person with any one of us and pave the way in help you to make the decision on this particular aspect, that to judge yourself so that you can check yourself whether you're fit for this kind of commitment or not. As we have been saying, it's all about creating clarity, right? So that's why the stock keeping units that's under progress at the moment are these three aspects are relevant to what we discussed today: academic pathway planner, then impact career mapping tool, and certified personal assessment. So I think certified personal assessment actually has been shared with, I think, many of us who ever filled in that questionnaire, right? So yeah, that's also one of them. You have already seen how does it look like. So that's pretty much it for today's version of the deliverables from our side. But I would like Professor Dieter to come in now and give your 2 cents on this, Professor.
Yeah, thank you, Bagab. So maybe I can add onto a few points. Maybe we touched it a little bit, but where you could typically work, for example in Thailand or in other countries. So there's the big three things, of course: academia, universities, research institutes, and industry. Those are the big places that employ research fellows, and so they are a little bit different in their requirements. So typical universities, you know them all in Thailand. IIT is one of them. Typical research institute in Thailand, like NASTA. So in Singapore, this would be like A-Star. In Germany, this would be like Fraunhofer or Max Planck Society. So also what we not yet touched is a little bit, you may want to have a feeling what will be your salaries in such places. So in Thailand, it depends if you are coming as a master or PhD, that would make a big difference. So let's assume something like postdoc. I think in Thailand it's probably between 45,000 and 65,000 or something like this, or 70,000. In Singapore, those salaries for postdoc, there might be between 4,000 to 7,000 Singapore dollar. So this would be like 100 to 150,000 Thai baht per month. And in Europe, Germany, and so on, those salaries, I have just asked my daughter because she's doing something like this there. So there are maybe about, but there's a lot of tax and things like this. There might be 4 to 6,000 euro, but you pay a lot of tax and you only get half of this money onto your bank account. So this is some very roughly, some salaries that you can expect. But if you go into this shop, you might be first as a junior position, means there would be already probably a project, and those projects are time limited. Mostly they are between 2 and 4 years. So your contract will be not longer than the project. You will be paid by the project, and what you have to deliver is already fixed. But if you go up the ladder and you become what's called a principal investigator, PI, then you have the full responsibility for the project. So you are the one who may employ other research fellows, and you need to deliver on the project. And at this position, or maybe a little bit higher, you will be also responsible to get new research funding in for your own salary and for the salaries of your team. So that's what I think, saw on slide number 3. So there can be actually a lot of pressure on getting funding to keep your research going. And now it depends on your type of your research. It might be experimental research, what I did in my career, molecular biology and things like this. So those research is very expensive. And or you might do other research which is purely computational, then the funding that you need is mainly for salaries. And then, of course, you're in what we call the number game, in publications, and those are will be key performance indicators for you in that job. The highest the highest key performance indicator in the academia and research institute will be publication. In the industry, not. They are not interested in publication. They want to generate new IP, intellectual property, to improve their products or develop new products. There, your key performance indicator would be probably patent applications, and to get those patents granted for a new product. So just some other aspects if you choose as parts. I think, should we go into the question and answering sessions?
Yeah, no, I think, Professor, like any of our participants, right? I mean, whenever they would need guidance, definitely Careers Plus will pave that way, right? We will definitely pave that
Yes.
way, and can help them through to get in there wherever
Yes.
they want.
So I did it almost all. I worked in a research institute, not a university, in a research institute. I did my PhD, I did postdoc, I was
you did?
research
Okay,
fellow,
sorry.
and then the normal path we describe that often leads to an academic position and so on.
So basically,
I
you
believe I
traversed the
can
whole
answer all those questions.
path, right? We put 5
Yes.
options. You did all of them.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. Let's okay. Yes, Mr. Kirby.
Thank you, Professor Dieter. Thank you, Mr. Berkovs. Professor Dieter is the classic example of going through those 3 main paths that we are, trying to give clarity here in Careers Plus Plus: the pathway to job placement, higher studies, and entrepreneurship. And Professor Dieter did all of those 3.
Yeah.
So for our audience online, would you like to ask questions to Professor Dieter or Mr. Berkov? Now is the time to ask questions.
So my question is, when and why would a business choose to outsource work to academics over their in-house research team?
Yeah, maybe I can start to answer this. Of course, cost. Mainly a company, they are quite driven by cost, and often they do not want to build up a larger research team because those are people, they are employed under formal employment contracts, and also of the cost, depending on the field of research. Certain research may need certain special equipment, and the company may not have that equipment and may don't want to purchase it, only to answer maybe one research question that may be only relevant for a limited period of time. So this is for number one.
And how do they like normally go about looking for the particular person who would help them in their research?
So, for example, I can give you some examples from NUS, National University of Singapore, where I worked before. So often companies, they approach the university, often the so-called tech transfer office. And then they may ask, hey, I have a certain problem. Can you help me to solve it? You know, certain companies, they gave us complete lists of many different things, of problems they want to solve. And then in NUS, they approached, you know, different labs and different teams if they can help the company. So this would be end up in what we call contract research. And in those contract research, usually the IP, if the company pays everything, usually the IP and everything belongs to the company. But sometimes it ends up in joint research, means the company together with the university is exploring a certain field, and then the intellectual property is shared owned by the company and the university. So sometimes companies do this because they have a very concrete details question they want to solve. Or sometimes companies do this because they want to have some new ideas and input.
So just one thing to add. So Modupi, your question is generic, right? Because 90% of the companies would do exactly what Professor Dieter said, unless until they are very much deep into some product development, right? Like petrochemical or like I think petrochemical companies sometimes they don't depend on outsiders. They would rather go for their own research work. But then they have a huge like for example, I believe even in the automotive industry, they would rather have their own research work, right? Like in our solar business also, all the manufacturers, they will have their own research work. So I would just like to get this clarity from you, Modupe. Your question is a generic one or specific one to the industries, it's like industry specific one?
Like specific in sense, like whether it's automotive or more scientific?
No, do you have a specific industry in mind?
No, more generic. Yeah, you're right. That's more generic.
Yeah.
Okay.
So generic, that's what they do. But sometimes, just to add on it, because just from like 90% of the companies would do it because they won't be spending their efforts in their funds in something like this. They would rather cooperate with a very, reputed university who can serve the purpose. But I just saw one thing. I'm just sharing from my own this thing. Like many of us might be knowing the name Takanaka Corporation. They're one of the oldest construction company in from Japan, and I think I haven't updated myself for last few years, but until the last time I heard, they were still privately held. So it's a family-owned business for 400 years, more than 400 years. So I happen to be working very close with them for certain projects in the past, and has used to visit them quite frequently. And when I saw their own research institute, I mean, I was quite surprised that the year was 2015, and they were working with, augmented reality, virtual reality back then very effectively. The level of research they were working, a construction company, but the level of research they were working, it's unbelievable. Like even at times, maybe students from Tokyo University will come and use their labs. So sometime I think we do have exceptions like that. But of course, that's a company with an absolutely fantastic pedigree of 400 years. So they decided to go absolutely on their own aspect, but you need to have a mindset and level of success like that to have your own in-house, supremely equipped research work. But 99% of the organizations would simply do the way Professor Dieter said. You know, it's always easier to do it that way and let the educational institutions or research institutions do their job because they know that much better than the corporate. Yeah, I'm just to add up. Yeah.
Also, like when they're looking to build their in-house research teams, are they mainly focusing on recruiting academics or are they focused on recruiting like professionals in the industry?
The one I saw, it was a mixture of both. They literally had a team of proper researchers who were, in fact, so it was like there had been people who were groomed to be researchers. They had nothing to do with their core business. They're groomed to be researchers with guidance from proper academicians from the likes of big universities. So that's where automatically that integration has to come. So an education institution would be used for that purpose, but eventually those people were groomed to be researchers to serve the research and development work of a construction company. So as I said, it depends on the mindset of the company, the level to which they want to really grow. And of course, like I said, when I went to visit them, that's 2015. That's 11 years back, right? So they were by that time already a 400 years old company. So of course, with tremendous level of success. So automatically, when someone has seen that level of success and decide to integrate part of their profitability to things like this, they can do it. But a practical approach for any company, any developing or even developed company with core focus on their core business, they would always go ahead with an educational institution.
And then on to my other question is, if that opportunity was given for an academic to work with a business, if they sort of wanted to transition then to like professional industry for that company, how would they make that transition? Like, how should they utilize that opportunity for that transition?
I think, Professor Dieter, would you like to put some light
The-
on this? Because you have done it yourself, right?
So the academic is still in an academic institution first?
Yes, but they had that opportunity to sort of work with a business.
Yes. So usually these things are done, yeah, under certain agreements, maybe a product development agreement or something like this. Yeah, it depends on the company. If they feel this academic is so good and they want to integrate this person into their team in the company, it's possible. It depends on the company and the strategy of the company if they want to build their own independent research team or not. Yeah, mainly a question of cost and how the company sees a very long-term commitment to research. Because if they do not have a long-term commitment to research, let's say they just want to have one new product, do it, and then they do not want to continue research, then they probably don't build a team, But if the strategy is, they're building totally new products to compete in the marketplace, yeah, they may start to build their own research team and they may recruit, of course, from universities. And for the company to make it more safe, they may like to work with these people first before they may offer them a job in the company. So working in a project at a university with a company together, probably interesting. Maybe gives you some, future opportunities and more avenues.
So I would just like to add, because I did a few projects in the past, but from the other side, sitting on the industry side and then integrating people from the academia. Actually, I did quite a bit during one of the old office building, one of my company where I was working and I was growing its building its new office. I believe, Professor, you know which building I'm talking about. It's one of the very first successful energy efficient building here in Thailand. So in that particular project, since we were trying to develop a state-of-the-art green building, so we did take help from the academia of Thailand. So but over there, I think we did a very unique way of gelling it in. So the concept, definitely we needed the academia to come up with We told them, but we were very clear what we want. So we really wanted to achieve certain level of performances. So we just mentioned that level of performances was mentioned to them. They came up with a theoretical part of it. And out of those theoretical solutions, we created the practical version of it, maybe with 85%, conversion ability, and show it to them. And with their consent, we went ahead and we executed. And the way that building was designed at that point in time, if I remember correct, even in ASHRAE standards of United States, that building could preserve, I think, could reduce the energy consumption about 40% lower than the baseline of ASHRAE, and that too without using anything like solar, because during those days solar was still very expensive. Like today's time, if we could install solar all over the roof, could have been even more. So I think that was a good. So basically, both sides, the academia and our own team, we knew our team did not have even one researcher, just simple engineer who know how to build. That's it. But the way we put it, both sides knew their boundaries, and the management did a good job in taking the decisions. So we didn't leave the decisions neither with the academia nor with the working engineering team. We put the, what we call it, the baselines. We call the shots on the decisions in terms of applicability and budget. And based on those boundaries, I think the combined team of academia and the engineers, like professional engineers, managed to deliver it. So I think it depends also like how well the decision makers get involved in that process. Yeah.
Also, I wanted to ask, like, with in-house research teams and company, generally, like, what are the other departments that they are working with or other teams that they work with? Or are they already like a mixture of different specializations within that research team?
Even you said if a company has their own research team, right?
Right. Is that research team working with other departments like closely, or are they already different specializations in that team?
I think if a company really goes for an R&D, they would focus a team on the R&D. Of course, they have to have some sort of mapping with the other departments, but it's not advisable for them to dilute their focus on company's day-to-day operation as well, because that will dilute. So there should be some people who would be playing that role, like who would monitor the relatability of the progress in the research work with the need of the company's tangible demands. But ideally, if someone is put on a research work and at the same time that person is liable to deliver the company's tangible needs, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. People try and then they fail. If someone is supposed, definitely, if someone has to choose between doing the thing that will earn company a few extra bucks over do some research, so that the priorities have to be well set. So if someone is put on the research work with the priority being research work, that should be their focus. Of course, if they have some free time and they want to help someone out, that's a different thing. But this dual responsibility, it doesn't work.
Madupi, do you
Yeah,
have
such
any?
a research unit in a company, they can do different things. They may improve existing products.
Yeah.
Then, they are linked sometimes with the application specialist and sales team. The sales team will tell them, hey, something doesn't work. And then, so that could be the link, and they are fixing this problem. So they are improving existing products. The second thing such research team can do is they improve internal things, like they are manufacturing machines or things like that. Means, their research for their own purpose to run maybe the manufacturing or something like this in a better way. And the third thing those research teams do is they are, what we call product development. So they are developing something completely new. So when they develop something completely new, it will base on certain demands or on certain, some of this may come from the sales team or from the, some strategic team in the company, in which direction they want to move with their next generation products. Yeah, so they could do different things. So totally new products, improving of existing products in internal research for their own operations.
Also, something else is like how in tuned are companies, sorry, how in tuned are they with like global trends generally? Are they always like actively actually trying on global trends, or are they keeping a more like stabilized approach that this has worked over the past year, so we'll continue going this way?
I think it depends. It depends on the industry and depends also on the mindset of the management. So it's a mixture of both. Of course, one has to be aware of the global trends. Everyone cannot be a trendsetter, right? So we have to play with the books. But having said that, sometime when we read global trends, so we exactly know what are the opportunities and what are the adversities, right? And sometimes we have adversities where we can create opportunities for ourselves. But 9 out of 10 times, I think it's mixture of both. We are focused towards what the global trends are, and at the same time, we see where we can add value, and act accordingly. But this is, I'm not quite sure. How do you relate research with that? Is it like market research you're talking about?
Uh, yeah, I'm thinking like how would they like integrate that? And also just wondering in terms of like modern, like today's modern world, how things are rapidly changing compared to the past. Like
Okay.
how, yeah, how frequently are they really instilling new
No, see,
trends into
the
their
difference
work?
is that now we have so much of information, right? Before the information were scarce, we tend to learn by just reading newspapers and maybe listening to news in the TV. But nowadays, everything is on our palm, so automatically people are aware of the entire global trend today, right? So based on that trend, I'm just giving you a simple example, right? Like for example, say we are talking about the construction business. Very simple. So in construction business, what are the things that we must be aware of? We must be aware of all the material costs and the cost of the people and the inflation, right? So if we need know these three things, so basically whenever a project comes across, we simply need to see that all the materials and equipment involved in that particular project, what are the trend of the raw material associated with that, right? I mean, price wise, availability wise, and so on and so forth, right? And then automatically, if we look into the inflation and the overpricing index of the location of the geographical location we are talking about, so we can very easily can determine that how the indirect costs are shifted, right? Because that defines the manpower cost. So once we know these two things from the trend, then we can plan accordingly. If we simply want to go by the book, we adjust ourselves with whatever the trends have suggested. We adjust ourselves and adjust our pricing according to that. If we just simply follow the trend. But if we want to create something of our own, we might say, okay, we don't follow the trend because we are quite confident of what we are capable of and we go with our own thing, which may or may not work. Or some people will do the both. They will simply see that, okay, on the material side we shouldn't be playing much, let's follow the trend of the market. But when it comes to the indirect cost that is associated with our human workforce, let's try to work out at how we can get the maximum output with minimum input of individuals. So that even though any other of our competitor might simply increase the indirect cost following the global trend, but we will achieve the same amount of work with less people and at a faster time, so we don't have to increase our pricing, things like that, so basically it's a mixture of both. We need to understand two things: how the global trend is there, so we have to have a regular research of that thing. And nowadays it's very easy. Just open there are certain websites which will give the trend of every single price index. So that is one thing, and the second thing is that knowing ourselves too, where our strengths are, where our weaknesses are. So if we see that, okay, so and so would need 50 people to do this, but our people have far more productivity, so we can still do it with 30 people. So you see, the global market may be pricing like say inflation is suppose 7%. So someone who used to use 50 people, they're still using 50 people. So they're putting up 7% on the top of their existing price. But this someone with innovative thought, with better skill set, if 30 people can do it, they would put 30 people. But instead of putting 7% inflation, they might put 10% for some contingency. But still, they're cheaper than someone who's 50% plus 50% plus 7%, right? So these are the ways that one has to be aware of the global trend, aware of self, and adjust accordingly. And again, it's again going back to the very core of Careers Plus Plus, because Careers Plus Plus main objective is what? To make ourselves aware of self, right? So that we can be the best version of ourselves and provide the best outcome.
Thank you for that discussion. Very in-depth. Thank you, Modupe, for your question. So if there's no more question, we would like to thank everyone for joining us today in this sessions of Career Plus Plus. We hope that you have clarity whether research and academia is for you. If not, then watch out for our next session. We shift into entrepreneurship and alternative pathways, where risk looks very different, but clarity is just as important. So see you again next time for another session of Careers Plus Plus. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Goodbye.
If you found this content useful, please hit like and subscribe our Careers Plus Plus channel. Thank you.